Welcome to TIMFD. Today is my favorite day with your hosts, David Towner and Sam McKeown. If this podcast does speak to you, please like, share, and comment. Let your friends know all about us. And now, here's your hosts, Dave and Sam. Well, David, we're back again.
We are.
How you doing tonight?
Good.
Good.
Yeah, it's a little cold here.
It is a little chilly.
I feel like we're in, not Florida.
Yeah.
I feel like we're back in your home place.
Oh, yeah. No, I think it's like 20 below there now. So
yeah, well, okay, 20 below there, I get that.
Yep.
30s and 40s here with humidity.
Yeah.
That may not sound real bad. It's bad.
It's bad for Floridians.
It's bad
yes,
Floridians.
It is. Yeah,
we're all just like frozen.
Yep. The frozen tundra of Tampa, Florida.
Yes. It'll be 70 degrees next
week.
couple of days.
Yeah. So our topic has been forgiveness lately.
Yes.
And here a few episodes ago, we had your wife on.
Yep.
And she talked about a time in her life where she was scared to death to come to church.
Yeah.
Because her daughter was going to be here. Yep. It was a big family secret.
Yep.
And we had a really great discussion, really, really good story. And the other thing is that we will get in here in a few more weeks, the redemption side of forgiveness.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
You'll love
because
that, guys.
The thing that people forget is that when we forgive and when we are forgiven, there's a redemption that comes with it.
Yes.
So I heard you taught water aerobics at some time. Could you give us a lead in? I mean, you're a California boy, so you could teach water aerobics.
Pretty much anything, yeah. But my first master's was in physical education.
Okay.
I was a coach for many different, from middle school, high school, college. Graduated, felt like that's what I wanted to do. But God called me into ministry, so we took off and did that, went to Texas.
So I'm going to interrupt you there. Yeah. I heard that you found out on the way to Texas.
Yes, on the way to Texas, it was really interesting. I may have talked about this before, but as we were going to Texas, I get a call from my parents who said, hey, Dave, that seminary education that you are worried about paying for, because we didn't have a job, we didn't have anything when we were taking off to Texas. We had our jobs in California, and we were going to Texas to follow what we believe God wanted us to do. And as we're going to Texas, I get this call. My mom says, Dave, your education, books, everything's paid for.
Wow.
And I went, wow. And
that
was
awesome.
A confirmation. And it came from my grandfather, Burl, who accepted Christ when he was 80, and he said we had an impact on his life. So that was an eye-opening thing. But as we're going to Texas, we get there, get seminary done, 3 years, go to our first job, if you want to say pastoral job, which was in Somerville, South Carolina.
South Carolina, okay. Yeah. The Bible Belt.
Yes, the Bible Belt, which we went to Texas, and it was different for us.
Yes.
And then we go to South Carolina, and it was definitely the Bible Belt. And we went there on what we thought were the truths of this church, and we found out later on they weren't. The person that recruited me was the strategist for the Southern Baptist Convention for South Carolina. He actually was a member of the church, but he wasn't there often because he was traveling. So he didn't know the inner workings that were going on. So what happened is we went through the interviewing process, and guys, one of the questions was, can you deal with conflict? And I went, well, as a coach, obviously I could deal with that. I was too young to ask why. By the way, I never looked into the finances of the church. I just trusted that what they were telling me was true. And so we go to South Carolina. We're driving over there. And we get there on the first day. We're in the first service. They're introducing us, and we feel tension. And we went, what's going on? My parents were with us at the time. They came with us. And we were all kind of feeling, what's going on? So I went to the business meeting they were having that night. And people were throwing things at each other, pens, paper.
Good old-fashioned Southern Baptist.
I had never been involved with that before. It was crazy. It's like a bad HOA meeting. So here we are in this meeting. I get out, when we starting to go back to our hotel, and I said, man, we could leave. We could just go back to Texas, California, something. But I had already promised the church I was going to be there. Tanya said, we got to do what we said we were going to do. So we're trying to kind of clean it up. And what ended up happening is I found out why they were asking about conflict. Because in the first week, the deacon board came to me and said, we need to talk. I went, okay, sure, we'll talk. So I went to this meeting, and they said, David, we have a problem. And I won't name the name of the worship leader at that time, but he was a very talented guy in charge of all Charleston music. This guy was, he was one of the reasons why I came.
Oh, wow.
And they come to me and they say, David, we have a problem. I said, what is it? They said, he's living a homosexual lifestyle. I go, how do you know that? And they go, he's very open about it. I go, really? And you guys haven't confronted that? And they go, well, no, that you come from San Francisco, you can deal with it.
Oh, my.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so that was a little unfair, obviously. So I said, okay, I'll talk to him and see what's going on. And we had a real good conversation. I mean, he was honest with me and I was honest with him. I said, we can get you to counseling, work on things. And I know some people would totally disagree with this and say that they don't believe that this is a problem. Biblically, it's a sexual sin, something that needs to be dealt with, just like having sex outside of marriage or anything else, adultery, whatever. So he said, I know that, but I don't want to deal with it. He goes, I know that you're not going to keep me here. And I went, I can't. I can't. But this is breaking my heart because, you're one of the reasons why I came. I believe God wanted me to be with you. And I said, are you sure you don't want to do some counseling, work on this, get into a better place? I believe that God could put you in there. And he goes, no. So I had to release him. And that was the first week I was there. So the next week they didn't have a worship leader. That same week I found out, I went, hey, show me the finances. So I asked the financial team to show me. And they realized there were 2 loans on a property that they thought they only had 1 loan on. The pastor prior to me basically made a loan for himself without the church knowing it. And so I had to go to the church and say, we have 2 loans. Oh my goodness, people just, they were getting
Came unglued, didn't they?
They were going out. And this was supposed to be the next big church in the area. That's why another reason why I went is that we were renting out an old theater, if I remember right, and the property that they were paying on was 20 acres, right in the perfect prime area.
Wow.
And they said, you're the guy, we need to do this. So I went to the church, told them, they're shooting the messenger by then, and I knew that, and I went, okay. And then the giving started dropping. I started dealing with our children's minister, who was really dirty. The children's ministry was really dirty. And as a parent at that, with young kids at that time, I just go, I don't want that. And so I went to his house because he said it's perfectly fine. I went to his house, knocked on his door. He opened the door and he wanted to close it. I put my foot in it, and he was a hoarder. There were dog feces all on the ground. It was the nastiest thing I've ever seen. I went and called the deacon board and said, we got a problem. Deacon board ended up getting 2 trash, these big, big trash dumpsters that they do for construction, filled 2 of them. Oh my. It was unbelievable. They were shocked. They cleaned it all up. They said, let us deal with it. We've known this guy forever. And I said, okay, we don't have to call DCF. We don't need to deal with it because he had a couple of kids. And they said, no, let's not deal with that. Well, within just a couple of weeks, he was back to the same thing, feces on the walls, on the ground, because I went up there and showed up again. And no one had been in his house. And I said, I just can't have this where you're making everything dirty with our children's ministry and you're not taking care of your own family. Right. So had to deal with that. By then, the finances really dropped. And the last thing that happened, and this is all just in a few weeks, the last thing, the largest giver in the church, he gave about half to the church, and I did not know that when I first came. But then when I said, hey, I got to talk to this guy, they said, understand that he gives half of what's going on here. He was teaching a Bible study, and in the Bible study, he was saying it was perfectly fine to have sex outside of marriage. Oh, no. And I went, well, biblically, culturally, yeah, I could see that. But biblically, no. Right. And so I said, let's have a meeting. We had a meeting at a Burger King. Still remember it to this day. It's still in my head because it was that profound. Those profound moments. Yes. And I said, hey, tell me your teaching on this. And he told me, and I said, that's biblically not correct. And we can't teach that. And he goes, well, if I can't teach that, I'm going to take my money and go. And I said, well, obviously you're not thinking it's God's money, that it's your money, and I guess you'll have to go. And I knew that my job financially was gone. I was still a pastor of a church, but I was going to have nothing really to live on. So we immediately I went to Tanya and said, what's going on? And we're trying to find ways for me to get some income really quick. Right. And she was teaching. Well, she was actually the coordinator for all the aerobic teachers and all the personal trainers for the largest gym in there. She got that job. It was awesome. She was a national instructor and all that stuff, so she was able to get that job. Sam, this is what ends up happening. She comes to me and says, Dave, I got a job for you. And I said, okay. And she goes, you're a PE guy. You have your degrees. You should be able to teach anything.
Right,
so I thought maybe tennis or, baseball or swimming or something. But she comes up to me and says, Dave, I need to teach a elderly women's water aerobics class. And I said, that's the lowest thing that you can give me as an athlete. I ran track in college. And I know that's prideful thinking, but that's what I thought. I went, you gotta be kidding me.
Sure.
So I go, you're going to have me teach aqua aerobics. So I go there. I go proudly there. I bring my little box, music box, and I put my tape in there. I'm playing Christian music. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to play Christian music. And if people complain, they complain. So I play this music. These ladies are loving me, which I knew they would, and we were just having a great time. And at the end of the whole thing, they're going, oh, can you keep teaching? Can you keep teaching? And one goes, are you a Christian? Because she heard the music I was playing. Yeah. And I said, yes, ma'am, I am. And she goes, oh, which church you go to? And I said, I went to Summit Church. And she goes, oh. And the other ladies just stopped for a moment, and they said, we heard about the pastor there. He's getting rid of everybody. And just to go back on this, Tanya, because that was the last straw.
Right.
All the other things took place within just a couple of weeks of each other. This one took, the financial hardship took about 6 months. During that time, Tanya came to me and said, David, I believe you're not supposed to grow this church. You're supposed to shut it down. Right. And I looked at her and thought she was crazy. Right. So, you know who I am? I was supposed to be the next big thing coming out of, this huge seminary. So my pride got in the way, and we're not going to shut down. So we ended up doing some advertising, doing things with our own money and doing what we had to do. And we started seeing people come to Christ. We started making small groups. And but it was just so unhealthy. You could just feel, even when new people came in, they go, people are angry. There's nastiness. So there was a church that was really growing. And I know I'm kind of going long on this conversation.
That's okay.
It was really growing. And they only had like 3 acres. And I said, hey, Kurt, who was a pastor, would you like to take over the land? Because I think I need to shut this down. I'd really like to bring some of our people that are in our small groups that are connecting with us and being discipled by us to go into your group, and we just need to get out of here. This has just been destructive to me, to my wife. I'm in an angry place. So what ended up happening is we ended up having a meeting with him and his leaders, and I told them, that I can't remember exactly the amount of money, but just to picture a monthly loan of, $5,000. Let's put it that way. And Kurt, when I told him that the monthly payment on this 20 acres over a 20-year period is $5,000, and he goes, looks at Joe Still, who happened to be his executive pastor. He goes, we just finished our payment on our property, and every month we paid $5,000. It was almost to the cent. Wow. And it showed me, okay, this is what we need to do. So we shut down the church. Well, we tried to shut down the church. We gave the property over to them. Some people wanted some of the really unhealthy people tried to keep it going, then it died. Right. But the healthier people that we brought into the church went over to Kurt. The church grew like crazy. They built big buildings, did a big deal over there. And he kept sending stuff to us and showing us the positives of it. And we left South Carolina, especially me with my tail between my legs. I was a broken guy.
So, couple questions for you. Number one, somebody probably said you'll never pastor again.
Yeah, actually, Kurt, the pastor there, and he wasn't saying in a mean way. He goes, you understand if you're going to shut this down, you may never pastor a church again. Right. And I went, well, if that's the case, then that's the case. I can't continue to subject my kids to this, my wife to this, and me to this. It's just an unhealthy situation.
And so, just so y'all know, you've been here how many years?
23 years.
Okay, so you did.
Yeah, we redid. Yeah, but I couldn't take over a truly established church. We had to grow the thing start from scratch.
So, how long did you have to deal with the church hurt?
Well, when I came down here, I was in a really bad place. Really bad place. And Tanya even said, David, I don't know if I could hang out with you. I mean, she wasn't going to leave me, but she was not going to take this. And we were going to a church called Bay Life at that time. It's on the other side of town here. And they said they were going to go to what's called Stand in the Gap in 1999 in Washington, D.C., where men were coming to pray over the nation. And a couple of guys said, hey, we'll pay for you to go. Cool. So I went with them. And they saw that I was a broken guy. And the senior pastor there knew I was a broken man. Went up there, prayed, talked to a lot of other guys that had gone through a lot of stuff in business, and experienced failures and that kind of thing. And so what I did is I just listened to what they said. They said, you need to pray, be in the Word, humble yourself. Those are pretty simple things, right? Humble yourself before the Lord, and He will lift you up. Or if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, forgive their sins, heal their land, 2 Corinthians or Chronicles 7:14.
Right.
So that was the main verse. And so I went, okay, that's something I could do. So I came home from that experience a different person. Tanya said I was different working through it, but I still had the church hurts for many, many, many years. And that's why I got CR going here. Celebrate Recovery. Why we got Celebrate Recovery here for those people, and
Yes.
I was one of those people dealing with anger and resentment.
And so you didn't.
I couldn't forgive the
You didn't
people.
instantly forgive.
No, I couldn't.
And that's what people have to understand is that forgiveness is not instantaneous.
No. Our Lord forgives us immediately.
Immediately, right? It's instantaneous for us,
Yes.
and so, but for us to get past some of those hurts and the hang-ups and the things that come with, especially, church is a good, safe place. And we both know that church hurt is probably the worst hurt. And this is a really good story because it takes time. So what were some of the things you had to do to begin to forgive the people that put you and your family in that bad situation?
Sure. Well, one is to pray for them, pray blessings over
Yep.
them. Obviously, that was one. Second, I had to do a lot of just listening to the Lord through the Scripture and just go, God, I'm still struggling with this, and be honest with Him, be honest with myself, be honest with Him, and honest with some other men that I could talk with, and honest with my wife to say, I'm still hurting. This is painful, and I wasn't letting go because I hadn't really experienced true hurt like that in my lifetime until I was a pastor of a church. Coaching, you expect people to attack you and stuff. I mean, that's just what it is. And you just go, get on my face. But in the church, I just expected it to be different. And that's the problem a lot of people do. We should not expect that. The people in the church are hurt people.
They are.
And hurting people hurt people. And I was a hurt person who took over, who got going in a church and started leading a church here down in Tampa as a hurt pastor with a bunch of hurt people.
Right.
So I started realizing I got to get over this. And that's why the DNA of our church is the way it is, where we want to be a loving, forgiving, and grace-filled church, but we also want to be honest and say, hey, man, I'm hurting.
Right.
You hurt me, I need to work through this with you.
So many people think that, the church is the perfect place, but here's the thing. It's more like a hospital than it is anything else, because everybody who walks through those doors has some hurts. They've got some hang-ups. And if a perfect person walks through, I mean, Jesus just came through the door.
Exactly.
And so we all have to remember that. And I look at the church here as a whole. Now, Rita and I came here, I think about 3 years ago, somewhere thereabouts, and came from some hurt, and things we'll get into that at some point in time. But the openness that you have to have in order to forgive, and you have to be able to admit our part in it.
Oh yeah, gosh.
And so.
Here's how I admit. I should have never brought my family there. So there's a shoulda, coulda, and I don't want to have it there. But I did bring my family there without asking questions that I should have asked and got paperwork on, like anyone else would do if they were going to a business and moving from one business to another. I did not do that, and that was a fault of mine. Secondly, I realized that the decisions I had to make, these decisions early in this church, were things I had to make. I did not do wrong there. Those I did not do wrong. I did right according to Scripture. I thought I did it right according to the people. I was loving through it. But my hurt from financially being, feeling like I'm being destroyed, and it was happening to my family, I ended up being a grumbly person at home. So here's these people who hurt me, yes, and hurt our family, but I was continually hurting our family because of my anger, my resentment, and unwilling to forgive.
Well, and we do that. We don't talk to the people we should that have hurt us, and we take it home. We mumble, we grumble, what's wrong, and we don't tell our wives and things like that. And it just...
Well, it's funny, as husbands and wives will do this, boyfriend, girlfriend, friends. In the corporate world, you're going to get hurt.
Right.
Okay, and someone's going to hurt you. Something's going to happen, and unless we know how to deal with it and not bring it home to our house, we could ruin our marriages. We could ruin all the relationships, ruin the relationship with our kids. So here's why we want to talk about this story, because we don't want that happening with you.
Right.
There were many years that I held on to that hurt.
Right.
And wasted time, as far as I'm concerned. I wish I had brought a Celebrate Recovery in 2000 to our church. We would have been 10 years ahead, but that's, here or there. God has his timing. The timing he had was the perfect timing for us.
Right.
I'm going by my humanness of,
right.
if I could have had this. Well, you can't. That's an if only, and, the shoulda, woulda, couldas. God has done miracles in our life where I can now look back and laugh that I had 2 master's degrees and I was teaching an aqua aerobic class to a bunch of retired 70, 80, 90-year-old women. And actually look and go, that was a great experience. It really was. It was a great. Who else can say that?
Right,
Who ran track in college could say, I taught an aqua aerobics class, and those ladies loved me. I mean,
there you go.
It was awesome. Yeah. So today is still my favorite day, right?
It is.
It just is. Every experience we go through makes us who we are. The experiences that Tanya went through has made her who she is, a very special person.
Right.
The experiences I've gone through has made me a better pastor, maybe a more empathetic person. And I think that's a good thing.
It is. We come out of situations like that either bitter or better.
Yeah.
And when we come out better, then we can move forward. We can forgive.
Yeah.
We can. People say, well, you hurt me really bad. I'm never going to forget that. Well, you probably won't. But you still have to forgive, and you get some funny stories out of it. You know what I mean? Knowing your background, and you get to be able to talk about teaching water aerobics to senior citizens and things like that. And it also builds into who you are today.
Well, the whole experience brought humility. Came out of seminary pretty egotistic. Came out of college. In coaching, you have to be in many ways. And being in the pastorate, honestly, there's a lot of high ego guys in ministry, especially as you get into larger churches and stuff. And I had come out of larger churches, and you have too. And so it got me to a place of going, okay, you know what? All of us have our hurts. All of us have our stories. What do we do with it?
Right.
So what I do with it is I am honest with people. I tell them where I'm at, what's going on. If I'm hurt, I'm going to tell you. But at the same time, I get to laugh.
Get to laugh. Yeah.
I get to laugh a bit more than maybe some others that don't.
And when you can laugh at your past, you can laugh at the hurts because now you have grown from them. And that part of your story is going to touch and minister to somebody.
Well, and that I know my Lord loves me enough to get me through it all.
Yes.
And so if you're watching this, just know that whatever you're going through, if you're going through the loss of a job or going through maybe the loss of a relationship, the pain of someone, maybe a close person hurting you, understand this, that you will get past it if you give it over to the Lord, right? I mean, that's pretty simple.
Just have to.
It's simple to say.
Yes.
And I understand that it's not going to be simple to do. You've got to have other people around. So I had to have a Celebrate Recovery at our church.
Right.
I needed to have other people around me, my parents that I could talk to, and they prayed for me a lot. I mean, I was on the phone a lot through that whole process with them.
So one quick question before we go when it comes down to, I know how the church is set up here.
Yeah.
So the structure of this church is very biblically sound. Okay.
We're patting ourselves in the back just a bit.
Yeah.
But okay.
That's from my perspective,
Okay.
looking at from what I've seen so far. Okay. So, how have you come full circle to be able to say, because you don't have yourself set up here like most senior pastors do.
No.
You have yourself in submission to several boards and you have a whole group of people you hold yourself accountable to.
Yes.
So that, to me, that's almost full circle from...
Oh yeah, from the dominant. Yeah, our goal is to have teams of people that lead, take the Jethro principle, right? out of Exodus 18. Jethro, just so you know, Jethro was the father-in-law of Moses. Moses was doing way too much with all the people, taking all the problems on. And Jethro said, basically, McFly, you need to do something different. Right. You need to get people who are in charge of tens, 50s, hundreds, thousands, and put them in charge of those things and get out of the way and deal with the things that are going to be any like large issue that you need to help deal with. And what I do is, and you experienced this when COVID hit, I don't make decisions by myself. Right. We have a team of people that I asked to be on a COVID board, and we made decisions to be open, not by one man making that decision, but a bunch of people praying over it from all different backgrounds in our church, and then coming together and saying, what do you guys think? And everybody said we should be open and open quickly, and we were open as one of the first churches open in this area.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's how it's run, because I think God taught me by aqua aerobics
that
you're not all that. You're not all that, man. You're not all that. You're loved by me, but you need people around you, and you're not the guy that knows everything. Like the best executives, they want to be the dumbest guy in the room. I mean, that's really what you want to be.
Yes.
And for me, I want to be the dumbest guy in the room, and I do a very good job of that. Yeah. So,
well, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room anyway.
I know.
But I
Alex
really
knows this, our engineer.
Yeah.
All the guys I'm with are all smarter than me, so it makes it kind of fun.
So, what if you were to parting thought today for today is your favorite day? Yeah. You have one parting thought out of the book that you could share with us?
Yes. In the book, I'm reminded that I am loved by God.
Yes.
Okay. And I say in the book, today's my favorite day because God loves me. He's given me mercy that I don't deserve. He gives me grace that I don't deserve, and he gives me forgiveness I don't deserve. But he gives them to me anyway because he loves me. Right. And so if I'm teaching aqua aerobics, if I'm losing my career, if I am going through cancer, if my children are going through difficult times, if people hate me, and you're going to have that, I speak out. Today is my favorite day. I'm loved by my Creator. He has given me mercy, grace, and forgiveness, and that gives me peace. And so I want to bring up to you, if you've been in kind of maybe the boat that I've been in, and you've been in, we're going to talk some stories about you on this too, but if you've been there, speak out the words. It is your favorite day, and it's because God loves you, and he cares for you, gives you that mercy and grace and forgiveness, and we just got to hold on to it, and that's it.
Yes. And the forgiveness is instant when we go to God in prayer and ask for forgiveness.
Yes.
So thank you for listening today. This has been David Towner, Sam McKeown with Today is My Favorite Day. Live intentionally and be very, very blessed, my friends.
Teaching water aerobics, man.
There you go. Thank you for listening to TIMFD. Today is my favorite day. The views, comments, and opinions expressed here today are those of the hosts and guests alone, and Dave and Sam are solely responsible for the content of this podcast. TIMFD, Today is My Favorite Day, is produced and directed by Alex Korn. Music is composed and performed by Chuck Vaught. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, live intentionally, and be very blessed, my friends.